If you want to run a greenhouse that thrives in every season without paying a single cent for heating or electricity, you need to understand how the Amish design theirs. The Amish greenhouse is not just a glass house. It's a carefully engineered, low-cost, high-efficiency food production space, and one of its greatest secrets starts with orientation. Amish builders almost always face the longest wall of the greenhouse directly south. In the northern hemisphere, this captures the maximum amount of sunlight in the coldest months when the sun rides low in the sky. That orientation alone can make the difference between plants surviving the winter or freezing overnight. But sunlight capture is just the beginning. The north wall, the side that receives little direct sun, is almost never left as plain glass. Instead, it is heavily insulated to hold in precious heat. Amish builders use locally available low-cost materials, thick wooden planks, brick, stone, straw bales stacked and plastered over, or even an earthen berm built up against the outside. This insulation prevents rapid heat loss at night, keeping inside temperatures several degrees higher than outside, which is critical in winter vegetable production. Inside, the Amish take advantage of thermal mass, materials that absorb heat during the day and slowly release it at night. You'll often see black-painted 55-gallon barrels filled with water lined along the insulated wall, or large, flat stones placed under planting benches. The water heats up in the day from sunlight and ambient warmth, then radiates that heat back into the greenhouse as temperatures drop. This simple, no-fuel heat battery can keep frost-sensitive crops alive through a sudden cold snap. It costs almost nothing and lasts for decades with zero maintenance. For airflow, they reject electric fans in favor of natural ventilation. Ridge vents, hinged manually, run along the peak of the greenhouse roof, and roll-up side panels can be cranked open with simple mechanical systems. In the height of summer, hot air rises naturally and escapes through the ridge vents, while cooler air enters from the sides. This prevents plant stress from overheating and avoids the fungal problems that high humidity can cause. Another subtle trick is plant-based climate zoning inside the greenhouse. Tall crops like tomatoes, sunflowers, or climbing beans are planted strategically where they'll intercept the harshest midday light, shading tender greens below. This creates microclimates within a single structure: cooler, more humid spots for shade-loving plants, and hotter, brighter zones for heat lovers, without ever moving a thermostat. By combining these principles, perfect orientation, insulated north walls, thermal mass heating, natural ventilation, and strategic plant placement, the Amish have created a greenhouse model that delivers year-round productivity without dependency on fossil fuels or high electric bills. For the frugal homesteader, copying just these structural principles can slash energy costs and extend your growing season by months. Amish greenhouse soil building, regeneration and nutrient cycling. The Amish will tell you that a greenhouse's true productivity doesn't come from the frame or the glass. It comes from the soil. They treat greenhouse soil like a living, breathing organism that must be constantly fed, renewed, and protected. Instead of spending money on commercial potting mixes or chemical fertilizers, they invest their time in building deep, biologically rich growing beds using resources they already have on the farm. The foundation of an Amish greenhouse bed often starts with composted barn manure, rich in nitrogen and teeming with beneficial microbes. This is blended with decomposed autumn leaves for carbon balance and existing topsoil for structure and mineral content. The result is a growing medium so fertile that plants develop deep, healthy roots and resist disease naturally. This blend is never done in a hurry. It's turned and aged until the heat of decomposition has passed, ensuring it won't burn tender seedlings. One of their most ingenious techniques is compost trenching inside the greenhouse. Instead of carting compost back and forth, they dig narrow trenches directly in the beds, fill them with kitchen scraps, manure, and plant residues, then bury them under a few inches of soil. Over time, this material decomposes right where the crops are growing, slowly releasing nutrients upward. This method also attracts earthworms, which further aerate the soil and enrich it with castings. Rotation is another principle they live by. Even in a small greenhouse, they never grow the same crop in the same bed season after season. Tomatoes might occupy one space one year, beets the next, and leafy greens the year after. This prevents nutrient depletion, keeps pests guessing, and mimics natural soil cycles without the need for chemical pest control. Mulching plays a huge role too, even indoors. Amish growers spread straw, shredded leaves, or old hay over the soil year-round. This locks in moisture, keeps root zones cooler in summer and warmer in winter, and prevents weed growth. It also feeds the soil as the mulch slowly breaks down. Some even mulch the walkways, turning every square inch of the greenhouse into a moisture-conserving, life-supporting system. By focusing on soil as the engine of production, Amish greenhouses can produce continuous harvests without buying fertilizers or constantly replacing soil. It's a slow, patient approach, but for the frugal homesteader, it's proof that if you feed your soil well, it will feed you for life. Amish greenhouse watering systems and moisture mastery. In Amish greenhouses, every drop of water is treated like a precious resource, and their watering methods reflect a lifetime of observing how plants actually drink. While many modern gardeners spend hundreds on automated irrigation systems, the Amish have refined gravity-fed and low-tech solutions that keep crops perfectly hydrated without an electric pump or expensive hardware. One of the first systems you'll notice is rainwater harvesting. Gutters run along barns, sheds, or even the greenhouse itself, channeling water into large cisterns or barrels. These storage containers are positioned higher than the greenhouse floor so that gravity can deliver water directly through hoses or pipes to the planting beds. Not only is rainwater free, it's also naturally soft and free of chlorine, which means it won't disrupt the delicate microbial life in the soil. For targeted watering, Amish growers rely on low-pressure drip systems. Sometimes they create these by repurposing old hoses, punching small holes along their length, and laying them beside plant rows. This allows a slow trickle of water right at the root zone, reducing evaporation and preventing wet foliage that can lead to disease. Moisture retention is just as important as delivery, so the Amish integrate mulching into their greenhouse watering plan. A thick layer of straw, shredded leaves, or old hay covers the soil, locking in moisture, reducing temperature swings, and virtually eliminating the need for daily watering. This same mulch breaks down over time, feeding the soil with organic matter. Humidity management is handled without electricity. Ridge vents are opened in the morning to release damp, warm air before it condenses, preventing mold and mildew. Amish greenhouse crop planning and year-round production. One of the biggest mistakes new greenhouse owners make is treating it like a seasonal project, planting it heavily in spring and summer, then letting it sit half-empty or idle when the weather turns cold. The Amish never make that mistake. For them, a greenhouse is a year-round food factory, and the key to keeping it productive is meticulous crop planning that flows seamlessly from one season into the next. First, they break the greenhouse into climate zones. The sunniest, warmest section near the south-facing wall is reserved for heat-loving crops like tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and basil. The cooler, shadier areas toward the north wall or behind tall plants are perfect for lettuces, spinach, cilantro, and other greens that bolt in high heat. This zoning means that every square foot is growing something ideally suited to its microclimate, rather than wasting space on crops that struggle in the wrong spot. Seasonal rotation is just as important. In late winter, when outdoor planting is still impossible, Amish growers are already raising early crops of radishes, carrots, leafy greens, and hardy herbs. As those beds empty, warm weather crops take their place, ensuring there's never a bare patch of soil. When summer crops wind down, they immediately sow fall and winter varieties: kale, chard, Asian greens, and even cold-tolerant peas that can thrive in the lower light and cooler temperatures of autumn. They also make use of succession planting, seeding a small batch of a crop every couple of weeks instead of all at once. This ensures a steady harvest rather than a glut followed by scarcity. For example, lettuce might be planted in 3 separate beds, each staggered 2 weeks apart, so that fresh heads are always coming to maturity. A key part of their strategy is interplanting, where faster-growing crops are planted alongside slower ones. You might see quick crops like radishes or baby spinach growing between rows of tomatoes or peppers early in the season. By the time the larger plants need the space, the quick crops have been harvested, and the area transitions naturally without downtime. Amish growers think months ahead, considering how today's crop will affect the soil, pest pressure, and light conditions for the next crop. They know exactly which beds will host each planting through the seasons, and they prepare seed trays accordingly so that when one crop finishes, the next is ready to go in immediately. This continuous layered approach to greenhouse cropping means there's never a wasted inch, never a hungry season, and always something ready to harvest. For a frugal homesteader, it's a reminder that planning is just as valuable as planting, because in a well-run greenhouse, food production never stops. Amish pest and disease control without chemicals. In an Amish greenhouse, you won't find shelves lined with chemical sprays or synthetic fertilizers, not because they don't have pests and diseases, but because they've mastered controlling them naturally. The secret is in prevention, habitat management, and strategic planting, which together make their greenhouses resilient without relying on expensive or toxic solutions. The first layer of their defense is sanitation. After each crop rotation, Amish growers remove every bit of plant debris, fallen leaves, and old mulch that could harbor insects or fungal spores. They clean greenhouse tools, benches, and even pathways with simple solutions like vinegar or diluted soap. By starting each planting cycle with a clean environment, they drastically reduce the pest population before it ever has a chance to grow. Next is airflow and humidity control, because the Amish know that stagnant, damp air is the perfect breeding ground for mildew, blight, and aphids. They also space plants far enough apart to allow air to circulate between them, an easy but often overlooked method of keeping leaves dry and disease-free. They also practice companion planting inside their greenhouses. Strongly scented herbs like basil, dill, and marigolds are tucked among vegetables to confuse pests and repel common invaders like whiteflies and aphids. Some even grow nasturtiums deliberately as trap crops. Plants pests find irresistible, drawing them away from the main harvest. For active pest control, the Amish turn to biological allies. Ladybugs, lacewings, and predatory mites are encouraged to take up residence by providing habitat and avoiding any sprays that might harm them. Chickens or ducks might be allowed a brief, supervised visit inside the greenhouse at certain times of year to clear out slugs, beetles, and larvae from the soil. If a problem does appear, they respond quickly with homemade remedies. A simple spray made from water, a bit of soap, and crushed garlic or hot pepper can knock back small infestations without harming the plants. For fungal outbreaks, a baking soda and water mist helps change the leaf surface pH, making it inhospitable to mold. Perhaps the most important principle is that Amish growers never let pest or disease pressure build. They walk their greenhouses daily, inspecting plants closely so they can act early. This habit of observation means they're often dealing with a handful of insects instead of a full-blown invasion. Amish greenhouse temperature regulation in all seasons. Temperature control is one of the most underestimated skills in running a greenhouse, and the Amish have perfected it without relying on electric heaters, air conditioners, or automated climate systems. Their approach is based on understanding how heat moves, how plants respond, and how to work with nature rather than against it, saving money while protecting crops year-round. In winter, they focus on capturing and holding as much heat as possible. The south-facing wall and roof panels are kept spotless to maximize solar gain, and the insulated north wall prevents heat loss. Inside, thermal mass is a must. At night, they sometimes use heavy canvas or old quilts draped over frames to cover the most sensitive crops, creating a mini greenhouse inside the greenhouse effect that can raise the temperature around plants by several degrees without fuel. In summer, their goal flips, keeping plants cool while maintaining airflow. Another often overlooked trick is ground insulation. Some Amish will lay thick mulch, straw mats, or even old rugs over bare soil walkways during extreme cold to prevent frost creeping into the beds from below. In summer, they use light-colored mulch or reflective ground covers to keep soil temperatures from overheating, which keeps root systems healthy. By using passive solar design, thermal mass, strategic shading, and smart venting, Amish growers keep greenhouse temperatures within a safe, productive range in every season, without the electric bills or fuel costs that can make greenhouse growing unsustainable.